Hello, this is Rita Liu and you're watching The Shift. Celebrating over 60 years, Minconsult is an engineering and construction firm having developed projects in 27 countries. It recently achieved a groundbreaking milestone as the first ASEAN company in the engineering and construction sector to have its near-term GHG emission reduction targets approved by the Science-Based Targets Initiative, or SBTi. Talking about its history and sustainable future, I'm here with the CEO, Dato Dr. Ganendra. Good to be speaking to you, Dato. Congratulations on the achievement. I was talking to a couple of friends. It's like this is a big deal, right? In terms of what you've achieved. And before comprehending the significance, from my understanding, a bit of a history on the company. It's been around for 60 years, so that's no mean feat. Tell us a little bit about the history.
Yes. Firstly, thank you, Frida, for having me on board. Really excited to be on your show. Minconsult was a semi-governmental organization. So the old acronym is Malaysian International Consultants. But when the Engineers Act came into play in the 1970s, government had to give up its shares and they had to go back to individuals. So we had to lose the Malaysian part because it was no longer government owned. So that's why we shortened it to Minconsult. So that's the history behind the name.
What's happened over the last 60 years and to where it is today?
So we see ourselves as a Malaysian-based multinational engineering consultancy company, and I think we are really epitomized by our 5 core values. So number 1 is global outlook. You've covered it, 27 countries over 5 continents. But we're also the biggest financial performing consultant for the ADB in the whole ASEAN region. So we actually perform better than the professional firms from our neighbor down south even. Secondly, is strategic planning. We do a lot of policies and strategies for companies and nations, which really improve the lives of people as well as the bottom line of companies. Iconic projects is another very important part of our work. So our projects are often both aesthetic and functional, and we've won over 50 international and national awards. Pioneering spirit is the other pillar of ours, and really our projects at the forefront of technology, both globally and nationally. And employer of choice, our key asset is our people. Over 30% of our staff have over 30 years of experience, over 20% have postgraduate degrees, so really key asset for us. And our last pillar is sustainability drive, which we launched on our 60th anniversary, of which there's really 2 thrusts to it. One is the operations thrust, which is really grand standard by our SBTi win, but also a very important part of the sustainability drive is the push for sustainability in the projects we do for our clients.
Okay, and I've got more questions around that, right? So we're talking about your milestone here, right? From SBTi. What is the significance of the near-term GHG emission reduction targets approved by them and for your company and for your clients? What does it all mean? For people who don't understand what it means, like me.
Yes, so SBTi is really important if you want to be a global player in the climate change field. And what it is there's a lot of companies out there which are making pledges, but not taking any action. There's a lot of greenwashing. So SBTi is this independent body. It's set up the standards for decarbonization, which the world is following. And it really acts as a third-party verification of the whole process from right at the beginning, from the calculations through to the implementation. So it really separates the doers from the talkers. Absolutely. And one of the problems that we have in Malaysia is you're not the only one. A lot of people don't know about SBTi. So recently, I did an Ironman. So when people find out about it, they high-five me and say, "Hey, well done, Dennis," because they know how amazing and crazy it is. But with SBTi in Malaysia, most people don't know. Well, internationally, when you tell people you've got SBTi, they hug you, they say, "Welcome to the club." Because the top leaders in sustainability, 34% of global cap of companies have made the SBTi pledge. So it is really that important benchmark. And that's why both of us, need to make the Malaysian people more and more aware of the importance of this.
Right, and be doers and not just talkers, right?
Absolutely.
And Minconsult is the third Malaysian company to accomplish this. I take it the other two are then from other sectors.
Yes.
Right? How complicated was it to do, and what were the considerations in getting this?
Yes. So you're right. The other two were from the manufacturing sector.
Okay.
And we're not leaders just in Malaysia, but we're very much leaders in the region.
Right.
Because we're actually the first engineering construction company in the whole ASEAN region to achieve this goal.
Wow.
And there's a reason for this. It is tough.
Okay.
You know, firstly, you have to look at all aspects of your business and work out your emissions from all aspects of your business. So it's not just the core company, but all our subsidiary, all our international offices, all our investments. And when we work out the emissions, there's three parts of it. There's the scope 1, which is the direct emissions, scope 2, indirect, quite straightforward.
Yeah.
But the scope 3, value chain, is actually quite difficult to do. And they look at all aspects of your value chain, you know, to not just your purchasing, but even how you treat your waste, how you treat your sewerage, how you get your water in, how you do your IT resources, your work from home practices, your staff's travel practices to and from office.
Right.
So it's quite detailed,
Right.
the assessment of this. And one of the problems is, because there's few people done it in Malaysia, a lot of these things we had to develop ourselves.
Okay.
So a lot of these parameters were not developed for Malaysia. So we had to look at GHG protocols, we had to look at international standards and develop these ourselves. And then once you do that, you work out your emissions, then you've got to come up with strategies to how to reduce it. So we are reducing our emissions by about 50% by 2030. And you know, it's not just a statement, but you've got to calculate exactly how to achieve that 50% reduction. So the whole process is, in fairness, quite tough. It's not just sustainability experts and environmentalists, but you need to have energy experts, you need to have wastewater experts, you need quite a range of experts for you to be able to achieve this goal. Luckily, we have all of these in-house. So actually, we could do the process totally in-house without the need for external experts.
How long was the process in getting it up and running?
Okay. So the process is really quite an involved process, and it's a two-step process. So the first step, after you make a pledge, you're given 24 months to submit your emission calculations and your methodology for reducing it. We managed to submit this in January of last year, so that's 14 months ahead of schedule.
Right.
But once you finish that step, the next step is where the real fun starts.
The work isn't over.
So that's when SBTi really probe every aspect of your business, and they really leave no stone unturned. They go down to the absolute micro level of all aspects of your business, including your subsidiaries and all that. And not only do you have to satisfy them of your current emissions, but you also have to satisfy them that the strategies you're going to implement will give you those savings. Now, we managed to cross that hurdle in 11 months, satisfying all their questions, which we've been told is incredibly fast.
Right.
And I think it's also to do with our approach, because quite often when you get people to assist you to do this, they come from a finance or management background. So whenever they do these calculations, they use a lot of rule of thumb or benchmarking. Well, for us, we do everything from first principles, and we only use international benchmarking when the data is not available. So I think because we did this very engineering-based approach, we managed to get it done much faster.
Right, please be an engineer. Now, you also have an in-house tool, MIST, or if I missed, which was developed to help your clients understand their sustainability requirements and explore various solutions to meet their own goals and compliance with established sustainability reporting standards. Any case studies you can share?
Yes, yes. So before I talk about MIST in general, I think let me explain that you know, the SBTi is about our operations, but the environmental sustainability of the projects we do for our clients is really, really important.
Right.
And it goes beyond climate change, but all aspects of sustainability. And maybe before I go to MIST itself, I can just showcase some of our projects. So we are doing currently the Kuching urban transport system.
Right.
That will be the first green hydrogen system in the world,
Yes.
which we're doing here. You know, we're doing the Valdor sewage animal waste project. That's going to be the biggest one in Peninsular Malaysia, and it's both an environmental cleanup project as well as an RE project.
Right.
We just completed also the very iconic Petronas Leadership Campus, which was a real icon for sustainability. It's a platinum lead in GBI and has won a large number of sustainability awards. So for these sort of grandstand projects to happen, you need to have really great clients, you need to have visionary clients, and you need to have talented consultants. And you marry them together and you get these amazing projects. Now, to help us do this, we developed MIST. Okay,
Right.
so Minconsult Sustainability Tool is something for infrastructure projects. Okay, and what we do is we use it to not just look at GHG, but all the environmental attributes of a project and do cost-benefit analysis. And by doing so, not only do we maximize the environmental benefits of the project, but we also track it during its duration. And you end up with this sustainability report, which is not just climate change, but looking at all the 17 SGDs.
Yes.
And we put it in a format which is suitable for our clients, whether it bursts or whatever. So in terms of examples, we did it for our Valdor project. So we evaluated that it's about 24,000 tons of carbon saving. In terms of pollutants being injected into a river, it's about a 99% reduction
Right.
in the pollutants being injected into the river. And in so doing, we've also increased the river quality up by one category. So in addition to these main banner savings, we also look at all aspects of it. So we got another 8,200 megawatt hours a year of savings by looking at things like photovoltaic cells and heat pumps and energy low energy lights and all that. So really, we use the MIST to really maximize the environmental benefits of projects and to track it.
Right. When you talk about KUTS, the Kuching one, I'm quite well aware of that. And of course, I guess when you have that urban transportation system, it affects sustainable cities and development as well, because it's going to impact the whole state, right? When
Yes.
you've got these proper transportation in
Yes,
place,
yes.
or something like that.
Yes.
So now you have projects over 27 in over 27 countries across diverse engineering and infrastructure fields, and you also advise governments and institutions on policy. You know, what policies have you seen being adopted, and what would you like to see being embraced, be it local, be it regional, be it global?
Okay, so in terms of what we've seen adopted at the Malaysian national level, we are involved in National Transport Strategy Study, which involved rail, sea and air. We also did the sewage development plan, which came up with a strategic direction for the sewage industry, as well as coming up with policy guidelines and also strategies. And quite recently, we also come up with the environmental assessment guidelines for 6 industries for DOE. So now DOE has implemented these, and these are used as a basis for future EIA reports in these industries. But it's not only at the national level. So we're doing a lot of work also at the local level. The local plans for Kajang, Admaran, and now we're doing KT. We've put a lot of sustainability and climate change even at the local plan level. So as well as doing at the national level, we do it at the local plan level. We do this internationally as well. So the road transport master plan for Afghanistan was developed by our company. And that's still being used as the backbone for transport planning in Afghanistan until recently. In terms of what policies to be implemented, we had a recent engagement with NREC, actually a series of engagements with NREC. And I'll be honest that we were really encouraged by our engagement with the Madini government. A lot of really important things for the industry seems to be moving forward. Things like the NETR, the National Energy Transformation Roadmap, the EQA, Environment Quality Act going forward is really important to us. The ECCA, Energy Conservation Act, is also really important to us. And also this push on non-revenue water. So the current government seem to have got it right, and I really hope they push forward with it.
Right.
Now that the ministry has been split up to 2 ministers, I hope it will be driven even faster. Okay.
Right.
But the only bit of advice which we really want to push with the Madini government is the nuclear policy. So we have in the past been engaged by the government to do a nuclear feasibility study. Unfortunately, we couldn't complete the study. But before we were stopped, we did come up with a lot of important findings which showed that there is a lot of positive aspects of implementing nuclear in Malaysia. In particular, the standard of engineering and construction and manufacturing in the country, which showed we're at really quite a high level of nuclear readiness.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that we straight away build a power plant, nuclear power plant tomorrow, but what I'm saying is we should complete the study so that policymakers make a decision based on facts and figures rather than hearsay or emotion. And it's really important we get going on this because around the region, everyone is going down the nuclear path.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As a sort of a carbon, low carbon alternative.
Right. And the cleanest.
Yes.
It's the cleanest, right?
Yes.
We often talk about a just transition, right? And different countries at different levels of maturity. How do you balance development for both infrastructure and communities?
Okay. Really important point, Frida. And this whole issue of a just development and just transition is something that we as consultants need to be involved in and be aware of. The countries have got together and have pledged that we need about $100 billion a year from developed countries to developing countries. In the 2020 study, we found about 8.3 billion was pledged to developing countries, but most of that went as loans to countries in transition. That means those quite high up the pole. What we found was, a very low percentage, about 9%, only went to the
lower income.
Yes, lower income countries,
Right.
Which represent about 1.1 billion people, which is about 14% of the global population, but only 1% of global emissions. And the global emissions from them are 23 times less from that of global countries.
Right.
But saying that, they are very much at the forefront of the climate fight because 63% of climate-related deaths occurred in those countries.
Right.
So they are at the forefront,
right.
but there are a lot of them below the poverty line, and they're really struggling between paying for climate action versus basic, essential public and human needs.
Right.
So really, as a global economy, we need to come up with equitable and just solution. And as consultants, we need to be very aware of this and make sure that the policies and what we implement take into account two things: the position that the host country that we're in is in, and also the position of donor country, because a lot of the work we do is donor work, and we have to marry the requirements of both sides when we implement these projects.
The poorer nations are actually suffering from things like floods and what have you, right? So feeling the brunt of it, right? Now, how do you view the projects for oil and gas handling, right? And what is traditionally viewed as brown industries? Where are we moving in that direction?
Yeah. So all nations are transitioning out of brown industries into greener alternatives. But different nations are at different stages of implementation, and different nations are implementing in different ways.
Right.
So we need to be cognizant of that. So like in Malaysia, we've taken on board the COP pledge to treble RE threefold by 2040. And to do that, we've done a number of things. We said our RE will be 20% by 2030 and 40% by 2050, 70% by 2050. And I think we will achieve those targets. We said that we will not build any more coal-fired plants. And we said that we will wind down our existing plants by 2040. Similarly, we said that we will carry on with oil and gas development, but we at the same time develop technology in CCUS and CCUS, CCC and CCUS, so that we can offset the damages caused by the oil and gas industry. So again, for us consultants working internationally, we need to understand where the country lies in that transition and make sure everything we do lies in and falls in within where that country lies in terms of transition.
Do let us know if there's anything else you'd like to add, but 60 years, company's been around for 60 years. What's your vision for the next 60?
Okay. We know what to do to get to 50% reduction by 2030, but we got to do the next 50% to get to net zero by 2050. And what we do know is the technologies do not exist now to take us to the next 50%. So we need to keep at the forefront of technology development so that we can realize our vision of net zero by 2050. But for us, that's not good enough. We must be thought leaders, we must be role models, and we must encourage as many companies as possible to come on board on this journey that we're on. And that advice at the corporate level must transcend to the government level, and need to advise government and take them from this current economic model to a more fair, just and equitable model. This current model of unbridled capitalism does not work. We do hope that in the not too distant future, people will look back at what we're doing now. We are subsidizing fossil fuels. So that means we are paying people to poison Mother Earth. I hope in the not too distant future, we will realize that is a human sin and we should stop it immediately. And that's why coming on a show like this is really important to us. We love the work you're doing, getting the message out there, and we really thank you for the opportunity for us to share our message on your show.
Thank you, and here's to greater success for the next 60 years. And of course, thank you again. I've been speaking to Dennis from Minconsult, and of course, you've been watching The Shift Asia.